Marcus Chen stood behind the counter of his small shop on Nexus Prime, carefully sorting through a collection of blue crystals from the Andorian mines. His hands moved slowly and steadily as he placed each crystal into its proper container. The work was quiet and peaceful, just the way he liked it. The trading station buzzed with activity around him. Tall, blue-skinned Centauri walked past his shop window, their elegant robes flowing behind them. Green-scaled Dreknari merchants argued loudly about shipping costs in the corridor. Small, furry Vespian traders scurried between the larger species, carrying data tablets and making deals. Marcus looked like any other human trader on the station. He was 42 years old with brown hair that was starting to turn gray at the edges. He wore simple clothes, a plain brown jacket and dark pants. Nothing about him stood out in the crowd of aliens and humans who worked on Nexus Prime. "Marcus," called a voice from the back room. A young Centauri woman with bright silver hair walked out carrying a shipping manifest. The cargo from Proxima 4 arrived early. "Should I have them put it in Storage Bay 7? Marcus looked up and smiled at Zara. She had been working for him for 2 years now, and she was the best navigator he had ever hired. "Yes, that sounds good. Make sure they handle the containers marked with red labels carefully. Those are the rare Earth samples for the research station." Zara nodded and made notes on her tablet. "The Dreknari engineer wants to talk to you about the new engine parts we ordered. He says there might be a problem with the quantum cores." "Tell Korath I will be there in a few minutes," Marcus said. He finished sorting the last of the crystals and closed the container. "Is everything else running smoothly today?" "Yes, sir. The morning shipments went out on time, and we have 3 new orders for cultural artifacts from the museum on Earth Colony 7. Zara paused and looked at Marcus with curiosity. "You know, I have been wondering something. You always seem so calm about everything. Even when that Kravik trader tried to cheat us last month, you just smiled and worked out a fair deal. How do you stay so peaceful?" Marcus chuckled softly. "When you have been trading for as long as I have, you learn that getting angry does not solve problems. It is better to think clearly and find solutions that work for everyone." The truth was more complicated than that, but Marcus had learned long ago that simple explanations worked best. Most people did not need to know about his past. They did not need to know why he sometimes woke up in the middle of the night with memories of distant battles. They did not need to know why his hands automatically checked for weapons that were not there anymore. Korath appeared in the doorway, his large frame filling the entrance to the shop. The Dreknari engineer stood 7 feet tall and had thick gray-green skin covered in natural armor plates. His yellow eyes looked annoyed. "Human Marcus," Korath said in his deep, rumbling voice. "The quantum cores you ordered are the wrong size. They will not fit in the new engine design. We need Mark 7 cores, not Mark 6. Marcus nodded calmly. "I understand the problem. Let me check my records." He pulled up a holographic display and scrolled through the order information. "You are right. There was an error in the original specifications. I will contact the supplier and arrange for an exchange." Korath looked surprised. Most traders would have argued about who was responsible for the mistake. "You are not angry about the delay this will cause?" "Mistakes happen," Marcus said with a shrug. "The important thing is to fix them quickly and move forward. I will make sure we get the right parts within 3 days." The Dreknari grunted with approval. "This is why I like working with you, human. You do not waste time with useless emotion." As Korath walked away, Marcus returned to his work. He enjoyed the routine of trading. It was honest work that helped people get the things they needed. After years of violence and conflict, the peaceful life of a merchant felt like a gift. The afternoon passed quietly. Marcus met with several customers, arranged shipping for a large order of artwork, and reviewed the financial reports with Zara. By evening, the main corridors of Nexus Prime were less crowded as most of the day shift workers headed to their quarters or to the entertainment districts. Marcus was closing up his shop when the station's communication system crackled to life. "Attention all residents of Nexus Prime. This is Commander Theta of Station Security. We have detected several unidentified ships approaching the station. All civilian vessels are ordered to remain docked until further notice. This is a precautionary measure only." Zara looked worried. "Do you think it is serious?" Marcus paused in his work of securing the valuable items in his shop. Something felt wrong. In his years of trading, he had heard many routine security announcements. This one was different. Commander Theta's voice carried an edge of tension that suggested the approaching ships were not routine visitors. Probably just a cargo convoy that forgot to send proper identification, Marcus said, but he made sure to lock the container holding the most expensive crystals. Why don't you head to your quarters early tonight? I can finish closing up here. Before Zara could respond, the lights in the corridor flickered and went out for several seconds. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated slightly, causing loose items to float briefly before settling back down. That was not normal, Zara said, her voice tight with worry. Marcus felt old instincts stirring in the back of his mind. The power fluctuation pattern was consistent with ships docking forcefully, overriding normal station protocols. He had seen it before, in places where peaceful trading was not the primary goal. The communication system crackled again, but this time the voice was different. It was harsh and filled with menace. Citizens of Nexus Prime, you are now under the control of the Void Syndicate. Any attempt to resist will result in immediate execution. All vessel commanders will report to Docking Bay 12 for processing. You have 10 minutes to comply. Zara gasped and grabbed Marcus's arm. Pirates! What do we do? Marcus looked around his small shop. The peaceful life he had built over the past 5 years suddenly felt very fragile. He could hear shouting in the corridors as people panicked and ran. The sound of laser weapons echoed from somewhere deeper in the station. Stay calm, Marcus said quietly. He guided Zara to the back room of his shop where they would be less visible from the corridor. Lock the door behind me and do not open it for anyone except station security. Where are you going? Zara asked. Marcus was already moving toward a hidden panel in the wall where he kept certain items that most traders did not need. I am going to see what we are dealing with, he said, and I am going to make sure you and the other civilians stay safe. As his fingers found the familiar weight of equipment he had hoped never to use again, Marcus Chen, the peaceful trader, began to disappear. In his place, something else started to emerge. Something that had been sleeping for 5 years, waiting for a moment like this. The pirates of the Void Syndicate were about to learn that not all humans were as harmless as they appeared. The corridors of Nexus Prime had become a nightmare. Marcus moved carefully through the maintenance passages, avoiding the main walkways where pirates now patrolled. Through the thin walls he could hear shouting, crying, and the harsh commands of the Void Syndicate raiders. He reached an observation point and looked down at the central plaza. At least 30 armed pirates controlled the area. They wore black armor with red markings and carried advanced energy weapons. Most were Kethmori, a species known for their aggression and cybernetic enhancements. Their leader stood in the center of the plaza, a tall figure with glowing red implants covering half his face. The pirates had gathered about 200 civilians in the plaza. Marcus recognized many of them, traders, station workers, families with children. They sat on the floor with their hands behind their heads, guarded by pirates who seemed eager to use their weapons. I am Captain Vextar of the Void Syndicate, the leader announced in a voice amplified by his cybernetic throat implants. Your station now belongs to us. You will surrender all cargo, all credits, and all valuable information. Those who cooperate will live. Those who resist will serve as examples. An elderly Centauri diplomat slowly stood up from the group of prisoners. Captain, surely we can reach some kind of agreement. Nexus Prime is a neutral trading station. We have no military value to you. Vextar looked at the diplomat with cold amusement. You misunderstand, old one. We are not here to conquer. We are here to take everything of value and sell the rest of you to mining colonies that need workers. The diplomat's face went pale. You cannot mean slavery. That is forbidden by galactic law. Galactic law exists only where there are ships to enforce it, Vextar said. He drew his sidearm and shot the diplomat without warning. The old Centauri collapsed, his body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Screams and sobs echoed through the plaza. Marcus felt a familiar cold anger building in his chest. He had seen this kind of cruelty before in wars fought in distant systems, but those had been military conflicts. This was murder of innocent civilians. Let this be clear to all of you, Vextar continued. We will select 10% of you for immediate execution. This will motivate the rest to cooperate fully. Guards, begin the selection process. Marcus watched as the pirates began pulling people from the crowd. They seemed to target the young and the elderly first, those who might be too weak to work in the mines. Among them, he saw Zara being dragged forward by a huge Keth Mori with multiple arm cybernetics. That was enough. Marcus had spent 5 years trying to forget what he used to be. But some things were more important than peace of mind. He made his way back through the maintenance tunnels to his shop. Zara was gone, which meant the pirates had already swept through this section. Marcus went to the hidden panel in his back room and opened it completely for the first time in years. Inside were items that Marcus Chen the trader had no reason to own. A military-grade communication device, several weapons that were illegal for civilian possession, medical supplies designed for battlefield injuries, and at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, an old uniform with markings that most people would not recognize. Marcus put on the communication device and tuned it to frequencies that the Galactic Defense Force used for covert operations. If any GDF ships were in the area, it might be hours before they could respond. The civilians did not have hours. He selected a few items from his hidden cache and made his way toward the central plaza. The maintenance tunnels would get him close, but eventually he would have to face the pirates directly. As he moved, Marcus found his mind shifting into patterns he had not used in years. He cataloged the number of enemies, their weapons, their positions. He noted the layout of the station and the locations of critical systems. Most importantly, he began to plan. The pirates had made several tactical errors. They had gathered all the prisoners in one location, which made them easier to guard but also created a single point of failure. They had not secured the maintenance areas properly, and they clearly did not expect any real resistance from a civilian trading station. Marcus reached the edge of the central plaza and observed the situation more carefully. 31 pirates visible, probably more scattered throughout the station. The prisoners were being sorted into groups, some for immediate execution, others for transportation to slave markets. Captain Vextar stood near a makeshift platform where 3 pirates were setting up what looked like an execution device. A group of 20 civilians, including Zara, sat nearby under heavy guard. Marcus counted weapons, noted guard rotations, and identified the most dangerous opponents. The captain was clearly augmented with military-grade cybernetics. Several of the guards carried weapons that could penetrate most personal armor. This would not be easy. But Marcus had not survived 3 wars by taking easy missions. He activated his communication device and sent a coded message on emergency frequencies. Then he took a deep breath and walked out of the maintenance tunnel into the plaza. "Captain Vexitar," Marcus called out in a calm, clear voice, "I would like to propose a trade." Every weapon in the plaza turned toward him. Marcus walked forward with his hands visible and empty, showing no signs of fear or aggression. He looked exactly like what he appeared to be, a middle-aged human trader who was either very brave or very stupid. Vextar studied him with glowing red cybernetic eyes. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever seen, or you have something very valuable to offer. Which is it, human?" "I am Marcus Chen. I own a trading business here on the station. I have information that is worth more than anything else you will find on Nexus Prime." "Information?" Vextar laughed, a sound made harsh by his artificial voice box. What could a simple trader know that would interest the Void Syndicate? Marcus took another step forward. Several pirates raised their weapons, but he ignored them completely. "I know the locations and schedules of every major cargo shipment in this sector for the next 6 months. I know which routes have minimal security, and which ones carry the most valuable cargoes. I know where the Defense Force patrol ships will be and when." That got Vextar's attention. The captain's cybernetic eye focused on Marcus with new interest. "And why would you offer this information to us?" Marcus gestured toward the group of prisoners marked for execution. "Release the civilians. All of them. Let them take evacuation shuttles and leave the station safely. In exchange, I will give you information that will make you rich beyond anything you could steal here." Vextar considered this for a long moment. Around the plaza, his pirates waited for orders. The prisoners watched with desperate hope. "You would trade yourself for these people?" Vextar asked. "I would," Marcus said simply. "Very well. But first you will prove the value of your information. Guards, bring this trader to my ship. We will have a private conversation about cargo routes and Defense Force patrols." As the pirates moved to surround him, Marcus allowed himself to be taken. He caught Zara's eye for just a moment and gave her the smallest of nods. Everything was going according to plan. Captain Vextar had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The interrogation room aboard Captain Vextar's ship was designed to break prisoners quickly. The walls were lined with devices meant to cause pain to different alien species. Red lights cast harsh shadows across the metal surfaces. The air smelled of fear and old blood. Marcus sat in a chair that was bolted to the floor, his wrists secured with energy restraints. He looked around the room with the same calm expression he used when examining trade goods. To the pirates watching him, he seemed either incredibly brave or completely insane. "Let us begin simply," Vextar said as he activated a device that sent waves of neural disruption through the chair. Most species would be screaming by now. "Tell me about the cargo routes you mentioned." Marcus felt the pain, but his expression never changed. "The monthly supply run to the research station at Kepler 7 carries rare elements worth 50 million credits. It departs from the Titan shipyards every third Tuesday with minimal escort." Vextar increased the intensity of the neural disruptor. "How do you know about military escort schedules?" "Trading is about information," Marcus said calmly. "You learn to pay attention to patterns. The Defense Force has budget problems. They cannot afford to escort every civilian cargo ship." One of the guards, a scarred Kethmori named Grim, stepped closer to examine Marcus. Something about the human bothered him. Most prisoners either broke quickly under interrogation or fought back with useless anger. This one just answered questions like he was discussing the weather. "Captain," Grim said quietly, "look at his hands." Vextar paused his interrogation and studied Marcus more carefully. The human's hands were calloused from work, which was normal for a trader. But there were also thin scars across his knuckles and fingers. Old marks that suggested weapons training and combat experience. "You have seen violence before," Vextar observed. "Every trader has," Marcus replied. "Space can be dangerous. Pirates, equipment failures, hostile environments. You learn to take care of yourself." Grim was not satisfied with that answer. While Vextar continued the interrogation, the scarred pirate quietly activated a portable scanner and pointed it at Marcus. He was looking for hidden weapons or implants, but what he found was much more interesting. The scanner detected old injuries that had been expertly healed. A laser burn on the left shoulder, shrapnel scars across the back. Evidence of multiple bone breaks that had been set by military field medics. This was not the injury pattern of a trader who had encountered occasional danger. This was the medical history of a soldier. Grim stepped out of the interrogation room and made his way to the ship's data center. If this human had military experience, there might be records in the various databases that the Void Syndicate had stolen over the years. He started with the standard civilian databases, searching for Marcus Chen, trader. The results showed exactly what he expected: business licenses, shipping records, financial transactions. Everything looked normal. But Grim had survived 15 years as a pirate by being suspicious of normal things. He expanded his search to include military databases. Most of the records were encrypted, but the Syndicate's computer systems were powerful enough to break through basic security. Grim searched for any Marcus Chen with the right age and physical description. For several minutes, the search returned nothing. Then, buried in a classified section of a Galactic Defense Force database, a single file appeared on his screen. The file was heavily redacted, with most of the text blacked out for security reasons. But Grim could see enough to make his blood run cold. Name: Marcus Chen. Rank: Classified Unit, Military Intelligence, Special Operations Division. Status: Discharged with honors. Codename: The Reaper Below. That were fragments of mission reports from mine conflicts across the galaxy. Eliminated. Entire terrorist cell on Proxima Station without civilian. Casualties: Key, survived. Behind enemy lines for 3 months during Outer Rim. War, psychological. Evaluation recommends immediate rotation to non-combat. Duties: subject. Demonstrates exceptional tactical abilities, but shows signs of combat fatigue. The final entry in the file was only 5 years old. Marcus Chen has requested discharge from active duty. Request approved. Subject will be relocated to civilian trading station for extended psychological recovery. His location is to remain classified at the highest levels. Grim stared at the screen for a long moment. The Void Syndicate had encountered Defense Force Special Operations soldiers before. They were dangerous, highly trained, and completely ruthless when protecting civilians. But the Reaper was something else entirely. Grim had heard whispers of that code name in the dark corners of space where pirates and criminals gathered. Stories of a human who could appear anywhere, eliminate any target, and disappear without a trace. Most pirates thought the stories were myths meant to scare them. Now Grim realized that the myths were sitting in their interrogation room. He ran back to the interrogation chamber, but he was too late. When he arrived, he found 2 guards unconscious on the floor and the chair empty. The energy restraints had been removed with surgical precision. Captain Vextar lay against the wall, alive but dazed. Blood trickled from his cybernetic implants where they had been damaged. "What happened?" Grim demanded. "He asked me a question," Vextar said slowly. "He wanted to know how many innocent people I had killed in my career. When I told him, he just nodded and said, 'That is what I thought.' Then everything went black." Grim helped his captain to his feet. "We need to evacuate this ship immediately. The human is not what he appears to be." "What are you talking about?" Vextar snarled. "He is just a traitor." "No," Grim said, showing his captain the data file. "He is something much worse. Captain, we have captured the Reaper." Vextar read the file and his cybernetic eye flickered with sudden fear. Throughout the galaxy, that name was whispered in the same breath as death itself. Military intelligence, special operations, elimination of entire terrorist organizations. "Sound the alarm," Vextar ordered. "All guards to maximum alert. Seal every corridor and activate the hunter-killer drones." But even as he gave the orders, Vextar knew it was probably too late. The Reaper was loose on his ship, and everyone aboard had just become prey. In the ventilation shafts above them, Marcus Chen moved silently through the darkness. The peaceful traitor was completely gone now, replaced by something that had been forged in the fires of war. He had work to do, and 5 years of retirement had not dulled his skills. The pirates were about to learn why some humans were more dangerous than others. Marcus moved through the pirate ship like a ghost. The ventilation system carried him from section to section without being detected. He had memorized the ship's layout during his brief tour to the interrogation room. Now that knowledge became his greatest weapon. His first stop was the communication center. 2 pirates sat at control stations, monitoring radio traffic from Nexus Prime. They were relaxed, assuming their prisoner was still safely locked away. Marcus dropped down from the ceiling behind them, moving faster than either could react. Within seconds, both pirates were unconscious. Marcus quickly accessed their communication system and began sending false reports to the other pirate ships. He told them that everything was proceeding normally, that the prisoner was being cooperative, and that they should continue securing the station as planned. Then he destroyed the communication equipment and disappeared back into the ventilation system. His next target was the ship's armory. Marcus knew that the pirates would soon discover his escape and begin searching for him. When that happened, he wanted them to find nothing but empty weapon racks. The armory was guarded by a single Kethamori who was more interested in examining stolen goods than watching for intruders. Marcus studied the guard's routine for several minutes, noting when he turned his back and how long he spent examining each item. When the moment was right, Marcus struck. The guard went down silently, and Marcus began systematically disabling every weapon in the armory. He could not carry them all, but he could make sure the pirates could not use them either. Energy weapons had their power cells removed. Projectile weapons had their firing mechanisms damaged. Explosive devices had their detonators carefully extracted. Marcus worked with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before, but his real goal was not the weapons. Hidden among the stolen goods, he found what he was looking for, a military-grade communication device that could reach Galactic Defense Force emergency frequencies. Marcus activated the device and sent a coded distress signal. The message was brief but contained everything the GDF needed to know. Pirate attack on Nexus Prime, civilians in danger, immediate assistance required. He included his old military identification codes, which would give the message the highest priority. The response came back within minutes. A GDF patrol squadron was 2 hours away and moving to intercept. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Help was coming, but he still needed to keep the civilians alive until it arrived. Back on Nexus Prime, the situation was getting worse. Captain Vextar had returned to the station in a rage, demanding to know how his guards had allowed a simple traitor to escape. He ordered his remaining pirates to begin executing prisoners until Marcus surrendered himself. Marcus watched from the observation deck as 3 more civilians were killed. Each death felt like a personal failure. He had been trained to protect innocent people, and he was failing in that mission. But anger would not help the prisoners. Marcus forced himself to think tactically. The pirates were spread across the station now, searching for him. That meant fewer guards watching the civilians. If he could create enough chaos in other sections, he might be able to rescue some of the prisoners. Marcus made his way to the station's main power control center. The facility was heavily guarded, but he had advantages that the pirates did not expect. As a trader on the station, he knew every maintenance tunnel and service corridor. More importantly, he knew the security codes for most of the critical systems. The power center controlled everything from artificial gravity to life support. If Marcus could take control of those systems, he could turn the entire station into a weapon against the pirates. He waited until the guard shift changed, then slipped into the control center through a maintenance hatch. The 2 technicians on duty were Kethmori pirates, who had basic training in starship systems but did not really understand the complex network that kept a space station running. Marcus appeared behind them like a shadow. "Do not move," he said quietly. "Do not call for help. Do not reach for weapons." Both pirates froze. They had heard the rumors spreading through their ranks about the human prisoner who had escaped. The calm, controlled voice behind them sounded exactly like the dangerous ghost that their comrades were hunting. "You are going to help me save lives," Marcus continued. "If you cooperate, you will live. If you resist, you will not. Do you understand?" The pirates nodded frantically. "Good. I want you to activate the emergency evacuation protocols for Section 7. Make it look like there is a reactor leak that requires immediate response." The technicians did as they were told. Immediately, alarms began sounding in Section 7. Emergency lights flashed and automated voices announced the evacuation order. Pirates throughout that area abandoned their posts and rushed toward the supposed reactor leak. While they were distracted, Marcus used the station's internal sensors to locate the largest group of civilian prisoners. They were being held in Cargo Bay 12, guarded by 8 pirates who were now nervous and trigger-happy after hearing about Marcus's escape. Marcus studied the cargo bay layout on the control room displays. The bay had multiple entrances but only one main exit. The pirates had positioned themselves to watch all the entrances, but they had made a critical mistake. They were watching for someone to come through the doors. They were not watching the ceiling. Marcus left the 2 technicians tied up in the control room and made his way to Cargo Bay 12. Above the bay was a network of cargo handling equipment, cranes, conveyor systems, and loading mechanisms that were controlled by the station's central computer. Marcus accessed the cargo handling system and began making modifications. Heavy containers started moving on automated tracks. Loading cranes swung into new positions. To anyone watching, it looked like routine maintenance procedures, but Marcus was setting a trap. He positioned himself above the cargo bay and waited. Below him, the 8 pirate guards were getting more nervous by the minute. They had heard about the fake reactor leak and the mysterious disappearances of their comrades. Some of them were starting to think that maybe they should abandon this mission and flee. That was when Marcus struck. The lights in the cargo bay went out, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, but by then Marcus was already moving. He dropped from the ceiling onto the first guard, who went down without making a sound. The other pirates spun around, trying to find their attacker in the dim red light. But Marcus was no longer where they expected him to be. He had rolled behind a stack of cargo containers and was already moving to his next target. One by one, the guards fell. Marcus used their own confusion against them, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before they could respond. The prisoners huddled together in terror, not understanding what was happening but sensing that their captors were being systematically eliminated. When the last guard fell, Marcus stepped into the light where the prisoners could see him. To them, he looked like just another traitor from the station. But there was something different about him now. Something in his eyes that spoke of controlled violence and absolute determination. "I am here to get you out," Marcus said simply. "Follow me. Stay quiet, and you will live." As he led the prisoners toward safety, Marcus could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout the station. The pirates were finally realizing that they were not hunting a helpless traitor. They were being hunted by something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Marcus led the rescued prisoners through the maintenance corridors to a secure section of the station. There were 43 civilians in the group, including Zara and several families with young children. They moved quietly, trusting this calm trader who had somehow become their salvation. "Wait here," Marcus told them when they reached a reinforced storage area. "Lock the door behind me and do not open it for anyone except Galactic Defense Force personnel. They will identify themselves with proper military codes." "Where are you going?" Zara asked. She could see something different in Marcus now. The gentle trader she had worked with for 2 years was still there, but underneath was something harder and more dangerous. "There are still more prisoners on the station," Marcus said, "and Captain Vextar needs to answer for the people he killed." Before anyone could ask more questions, Marcus was gone, disappearing back into the maze of corridors that ran through Nexus Prime like a circulatory system. The station had become a battleground. Pirates searched desperately for their invisible enemy, while Marcus picked them off one by one. He had disabled their communications, sabotaged their weapons, and turned their own ship systems against them. But most importantly, he had gotten inside their heads. Captain Vexitar stood in the central plaza surrounded by his remaining guards. Less than half of his original force was still functional. The others were either unconscious, dead, or too terrified to fight effectively. His carefully planned raid had turned into a nightmare. "Report!" Vextar snarled at Grimm, who was coordinating the search teams. "We have lost contact with Teams 3, 7, and 9, Grimm said. Team 5 found their weapons had been sabotaged. Team 8 reported seeing shadows in the corridors, but when they investigated, they found nothing. What about the prisoners we were holding in Cargo Bay 12? Gone, all of them. The guards were found unconscious but alive." Vextar's cybernetic implants sparked with anger. "How is one human doing this to us? We are the Void Syndicate. We have conquered entire systems." "Captain," Grimm said carefully, "maybe we should consider retreat. Cut our losses and leave this station." "Retreat?" Vextar's voice rose to a roar. "We do not retreat from humans. They are weak, soft creatures who rely on technology instead of strength." That was when Marcus Chen walked into the plaza. He emerged from a side corridor, moving with calm confidence toward the center of the plaza. He wore the same simple trader's clothes he had always worn, but something fundamental had changed. The way he moved, the way he held himself, the expression in his eyes. Everything spoke of controlled lethality. "Captain Vextar," Marcus said in a conversational tone, "I think we need to finish our discussion." Every weapon in the plaza turned toward him, but Marcus continued walking forward as if he were approaching a business meeting. The remaining pirates looked to their captain for orders, but Vextar seemed frozen by the sight of this impossible human. "You killed innocent people today," Marcus continued. "That was a mistake. Kill him!" Vextar finally screamed. "Kill him now!" The pirates opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and projectile weapons filled the air where Marcus had been standing. But he was no longer there. Marcus moved like liquid death through the plaza. Years of retirement had not dulled his reflexes or his training. He flowed between the pirates' attacks, striking with surgical precision. Each movement was calculated to disable rather than kill. These pirates would face justice for their crimes, not summary execution. But Captain Vextar was different. He had personally murdered civilians. For him, Marcus had no mercy. The final confrontation took place in the center of the plaza. Vextar drew his personal sidearm and faced Marcus in single combat. The pirate captain was larger, stronger, and enhanced with military-grade cybernetics. By all logical measures, he should have won. But logic had little to do with what happened next. Marcus moved with the fluid grace of someone who had perfected the art of combat. He avoided Vextar's attacks and responded with devastating efficiency. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, Captain Vextar lay on the floor, his cybernetic implants smoking and his weapon broken. He was alive but barely conscious. Around the plaza, the remaining pirates had surrendered or fled. Marcus stood over the defeated pirate captain and spoke in a voice that carried across the entire plaza. "My name is Marcus Chen. I used to be a soldier. Some people called me the Reaper, but I am not that person anymore. I am a traitor who protects his friends and his community." He looked around at the watching civilians who had begun to emerge from hiding. "The Galactic Defense Force will be here soon. They will take these pirates away and make sure justice is done," The station is safe now. As if summoned by his words, the sound of approaching ships echoed through the station's hull. The GDF squadron had arrived, responding to Marcus's distress signal. Within hours, the remaining pirates were in custody, and medical teams were treating the wounded. Marcus returned to his shop as the sun rose over Nexus Prime's artificial horizon. The emergency was over, and life would slowly return to normal. He began the familiar routine of checking his inventory and preparing for another day of peaceful trading. Zara found him there an hour later, organizing shipments as if nothing had happened. "The GDF commander wants to speak with you," she said. "He says they have questions about how you knew their emergency codes." Marcus smiled the same gentle smile she had always known. "Tell him I will be available this afternoon. I have some cargo shipments to process first." Zara studied his face, looking for traces of the dangerous man she had seen during the crisis. But all she could see was Marcus Chen, the patient trader who taught her about business and treated everyone with respect. "Was it real?" she asked quietly. "The things they are saying about you, about who you used to be?" Marcus paused in his work and looked at her with kind eyes. "I used to be someone else, yes. But that was a long time ago. Today I am exactly who I appear to be. A trader who believes in helping others and solving problems peacefully. And if pirates attack us again?" Marcus returned to his inventory sheets. "Then I suppose I will handle it the same way any trader would, by protecting my friends and my community." Word of the incident spread quickly through the trading networks. The story grew and changed as it passed from station to station, but the core message remained the same. Humans were not always what they appeared to be. The quiet trader in the corner shop might be hiding depths that even pirates feared. Captain Vextar, recovering in a GDF prison, would sometimes mutter to his cellmates about the human who fought like death itself. Most thought he was insane from his injuries, but a few remembered the stories they had heard in dark corners of space, stories about something called the Reaper. On Nexus Prime, life returned to normal. Marcus Chen continued his peaceful trading business, treating his customers fairly and solving problems with patience and wisdom. But the other traders noticed subtle changes in how they were treated by visitors to the station. Alien species that had once looked down on humans now showed them a careful respect. Pirates and raiders seemed to avoid routes that passed too close to stations with significant human populations. The galaxy had been reminded of an important truth. Some humans were exactly what they appeared to be: peaceful, cooperative, and reasonable. But others were sleeping predators who chose to be gentle, and the wise ones knew the difference between cannot and will not. Marcus Chen had reminded the galaxy that the most dangerous humans were often the ones who had no desire to fight at all.